what if there is someone who's being deeply hurt in a criminal way within that congregation?
Mm-hmm.
That's a reality in today's world.
It is. Yep.
Okay. And we just make blanket statements.
Mm-hmm.
We tell people they're weak.
Yeah.
For being hurt.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That if they back away, they're in sin.
Mm-hmm.
The responsibility is being placed on victims instead of those who are there to bear the burdens of those who have been hurt. All right, welcome to the Church Dropout podcast. My name is Alan, and I'm joined by
Lisa.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Church Dropout is a podcast. We talk about issues, topics, and teachings related to faith, life, and culture in ways that are sometimes funny, sometimes serious, but always insightful. If you have not already, please like, rate, and subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast at. So this is our second run at the same podcast. We just started over. We're in somewhat of a new space, so this is going to take some getting used to and, figuring some things out, sound wise, all of that type stuff. Mm-hmm. But then also we had some meltdowns in the house. So, we had a kid who was melting down and all of that stuff. So, it's just one of those days.
Yes.
As, Monica would say.
That's that a girl goes through.
Well, I mean, that would be for you, but that wouldn't be for me.
I was trying to figure out how to, put it together. But
I threw the analogy out there.
You did,
right?
So.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So anyway, I want to talk about something that again comes up quite frequently on this podcast. I think it's something that until I think the church really begins to acknowledge that this is a legitimate issue within the church, that it needs to keep being talked about. And as long as there are issues within the American church, this topic is relevant. And we saw a video we were sent a video, and then, somebody else had also commented on this video by a popular pastor who made some comments about church hurt. Okay. And I want to talk about that.
Okay.
But before we get to it, one of the things that just boggles my mind is why the church continually misrepresents the idea of church hurt. Why does the church continually misrepresent it? Why does the church not acknowledge the reality that people are hurt by the church as an institution and also hurt by people within the church? Like, why is this so hard for pastors to accept and to understand, or people to accept to understand? Why do you think that is?
So, I actually think it's because it's not people don't want to believe it, because if you believe it, then, I mean, who the church? Why would the church hurt you? You know what I mean? And people think you shouldn't, and because that is the place that is probably one of the last places you should be having any hurt. You know what I mean? And so that's why I think it's just not believable.
Do you think that, based on what you just said, do you think that people, I don't know, do you think people that, I mean, I don't think I've ever thought that way. Like, like I've ever thought like, I shouldn't be hurt here. Not that I was walking into a place believing like I'm going to be hurt. But I guess what I'm saying is, it's maybe not put in the form of a question. I think wherever there are people, there's potential to be hurt, right? And wherever there's imperfect people, there's a potential to be hurt.
But people walk into a church and you're the first, and you think, okay, these are God's children. We're supposed to love each other. This is different than being at work or being on my block. My block is in my neighborhood. I'm not out on the block. But you feel like you're in a safe space when you're at church.
Yes.
And so I think, so I think that's why, unless you've experienced it, it's hard for people to believe that it actually happened. It's more like, what did you do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting. And that's a good point. It reminded me of, I remember when, I don't know, wherever you're listening to this at, you guys might not have this particular place, but when there was a gym that's called Planet Fitness. When they first opened up, everybody gets a membership at the beginning of the year, and I was one of those individuals. By the middle of the year, I was just paying for a membership that I never used. But anyway, when they were opening it up, it was so interesting. They had a big sign on the front, a big purple sign with white letters, and it said, "No judgment zone." You know what I mean? Like, this place is a no judgment zone. And then when you signed up, they had rules there. You couldn't walk around with your shirt off and different things of that sort, because they didn't want people to feel like they were being judged. But anyway, the reason why I mentioned that is that, you mentioned like a safe space, and the church should be that safe space. Not that you're not confronted with difficulties, but you're not judged by those difficulties, or not affected, or not singled out, or criticized for that. And then you should be in a safe space, especially when it comes to things like church hurt. So anyway, I don't know how that all ties in, but it'll tie in somehow. So yeah, we want to look at this video. It's by Bishop Wooden, Black pastor in the South, I believe. And so in all fairness, we haven't heard the full sermon. Okay. So this is a snippet of a sermon. It's a soundbite. And I want to be fair to that, right? Because, in this day and age, we, generally tend to judge people based on sound bites. And that's not totally fair. So I want to be honest that this is a soundbite. But I think there's enough there to understand the sentiment about what he was actually preaching on. But I also want to be fair to say this is a soundbite. I also want to say this, in all fairness, is that even though I do believe what he says is wrong, regardless, I don't agree with what he's saying, regardless. I also want to be fair and say that, this could be something that's contextualized in terms of he could be speaking to his community. You know what I mean? And this is one of the reasons why I think it's dangerous to some degree to have messages everywhere, because he could be dealing with something that's in his church. Right. So the way he's defining that could be something that's based on what's happening within his community. Yeah. Right. I still think it would be wrong if I was sitting in that community. I wouldn't, we still have some issues. However, I want to be fair as well. Preaching, teaching, and those things should be contextual to the people that you're actually leading. And maybe this is what people in his congregation are calling church hurt, and he's responding to that. You understand what I'm saying? My concern is that this is being played publicly, and people are deriving their understanding of church hurt based on this, and people are evaluating others who have been hurt by the church based upon this. And I think that's where the danger comes in. But I wanted to be fair, with that. You know what I mean? So what we're going to do is we're going to listen to it, comment on some of the things that he said, and we'll go from there. So let's take a listen.
I don't believe in any preachers, because one preacher disappointed me. Did you quit doctors? Have you quit dentists? Have you given up on all school teachers? See, why do we put these things off on the church? I'll tell you why. You're dealing with people who are looking for an excuse anyway. You're dealing with a weak person. Your heart wasn't in it. Anything your heart is in, can't nobody run you off. My God, when Jesus gets in you, they may hurt your feelings just like they hurt his feelings. But he came back. Praise the Lord. They may lie on you, but you know what? If they run you out the side door, you come in the back door, because you're getting something.
All right. So that is the clip. First, let me say this, man. I'm just saying, black preachers be bringing it. So, you know what I mean? Like the whole delivery.
You go out the front door, you come in the back door.
Oh my gosh, man. He was preaching. And to be honest with you, I could have heard that in any environment that I was in. You know what I mean? Like in the black and white. It's very typical. I think it is a very common thought, especially with a certain generation of black preachers. Okay. Yeah. It's definitely that. And because I've heard stuff like that. You know what I mean? Y'all like, y'all ain't got no stick withedness. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Is that a word? Stick withedness? Girl, what you doing?
So it is not a word. But I wanted to comment on him saying, weak.
Yeah,
for
sure. Yeah.
You don't even, so, a lot of people's church hurt can be something as minimal to something as big.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And you don't know the situation. You know what I mean? And for you to just put it all in a box of, you just weak. Your heart ain't in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah. That is concerning. That somebody who has been hurt by the church is considered to be weak. Okay, and let me back up a little bit. Because we're going to come back. Let's come back to that point, because I do want to at least frame it by what he is classifying as church hurt. Is not church hurt, right? It doesn't sound like he's talking about the things that generally people have issue with, right? The placism, classism that happens in the church, the the abuses that go on within the church, what is that called? The abuse of power, the control, all of those things that are a part of what church hurt is.
Right.
I'm not sure what he was saying would apply to those things. So I'm not even sure he has those things in mind.
Right.
Which again is part of the issue, because we're not even trying to define what these things are before we just go out and say them.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? And so when he says like, yeah, you're a weak person. Well, if I'm calling nobody ate my spaghetti and hot dogs at the church warming, church hurt. You know what I'm saying? Like, like you the only person taking home a full dish. Okay, well, that's not church hurt.
No.
That's just the dish that didn't,
Yeah.
Sorry, we don't put barbecue sauce and hot dogs in spaghetti. You know what I mean? And so that's not necessarily church hurt. Right. That's people just didn't like your dish. You know what I mean? And, now there's a way to handle it.
Right.
If somebody's up there going, ugh, who put this? You know what I mean? Now I will say this. Now, I don't know if you remember this, but we were at a church and there was a potluck that was going to happen, and somebody was like, yeah, bring some, man, it'd be nice to have some soul food and different things. And they're like, that's just too greasy or whatever. There was okay, but see now, okay, there's undertones, right, to some of that stuff. It is greasy. Yeah. Let's just be real. But I'm just saying, like, there's undertones to some of those conversations. So I just want to bring balance to that, the whole hot dog comment. But the reality is the things that he's calling church hurt, or that he may be thinking of as church hurt, are not church hurt. And the reality is that, like you say, like, I'm weak. I'm a weak person because I'm experiencing hurt by a community that I invested in. Right. You know what I mean? Like, that makes me weak. You know what I mean? Like, we've said this before. I mean, the fact that a person is feeling something is a result of them engaging the community properly. Right. I wouldn't feel anything if I did not commit to this particular community.
Exactly.
It doesn't bother.
If my heart wasn't in it, then you wouldn't have hurt me.
Exactly.
My heart got to be in it in order for you to hurt me.
Absolutely. You know what I mean? And so yeah, that's just, troublesome.
I didn't like the comparisons.
Yes.
You don't do that to the teachers. You don't do that to, the doctors and all that. The teachers and the doctors are not the church. They're, they should be held to a different standard.
There's a high bar. Come on.
You know
now,
what I
Lisa.
mean? So my expectation for when I walk into a church and my expectation for when I walk into the doctor's office, or when I go pick up my child from second grade, it's totally different.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's really good. The expectation for us to one another in a way that's biblical. Yeah, there's a high standard there. And the reality is that we do. Like, you don't stop going to doctors. I stop going to that doctor.
Right. Exactly.
You understand? So,
yes.
No.
I take my child
teacher.
out that school.
Okay. Right. You see, so the reality is that, we do make those type of decisions.
Yes.
When we're hurt by certain systems.
Right.
And we should make
Yeah.
those type of, decisions. And that's what I'm saying. If I'm being hurt by a quote unquote church, then yes, I need to make a decision on what's best for my mental health or my health in general.
Right.
Okay. Not even just
Right.
my physical health, depending
Yeah.
on what's going on there.
Yeah.
Yes, we do switch doctors.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with whether or not a person is willing to stick with it. It
Right.
has to do with the person, healing, right? You know what I mean? And so this is where I just think like, we just make these statements that sound good and have people shouting, but we don't really think through the consequences of what it is that we're actually saying and the people
Right.
that are actually being hurt.
Right.
At the end of that, he said something. He said, you getting something from this. And he was talking about from church. Again, that's what it all boils down to. It all really boils down to keeping people, coming. And I don't mean that in a manipulative way. I believe that Bishop Wooden believes that the way they do church, the way church is being done is valuable to people's lives. And I'm not saying it's not. But again, the emphasis is on what you are doing.
Right.
Going to church, being a part of that's where the emphasis is placed. The important thing is what we're doing. You're a part of that cog, that you're a cog in that wheel. You're a part of that system, right? So you don't leave the system because you're hurt. Well, now we're sacrificing people on the altar of church, on the altar. And that's where the problem comes in, There's a couple other things that he said. Like you said, he said, your heart wasn't in it. I just think that these things it just misses the point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, unfortunately, people are going to hear this and either be pushed further away from fellowship and community within the church. And then others are going to hear it and just be hardened towards individuals who have been hurt.
Right.
It's going to boil back down to that same old get over it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, get over it. You should, that's not a big deal. Most people that I know, like I said, I don't think that it's a surprise when people get hurt by the church. I think the surprise is how, as leaders and how the community deals with it when people do get hurt. That's the problem.
Right.
That's the issue.
Yep.
The problem is not that people get hurt, right? The problem is that as the church, as a church community or as a fellowshipping community, we don't deal with it in the right way. We don't address it the way it ought to be addressed.
Right.
We are more concerned about what it's going to do to the fellowship than we are what it's going to do to the person. You know what I mean? And I think we need to do a better job, obviously, of engaging this. And then as a church, as a whole, it's an issue that we continually find these situations where people are just not acknowledging church hurt. There are so many of us out there who have walked away from the institutionalized church and are bewildered by what it means to be in fellowship with other Christians.
Yeah.
And are hesitant to walk back into a community because they're afraid of this type of stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I could tell you, everybody that was in there shouting, everybody wouldn't agree. There are some people in there who probably amening because it's the environment, but they're probably like,
yeah,
I'm hurt. I've been hurt.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I need to get over it. You know what I mean? And so, think about, just think about that. Like, again, I didn't listen to the whole message, but what if there is someone who's being deeply hurt in a criminal way within that congregation? That's a reality in today's world.
It is. Yeah.
Okay. And we just make blanket statements. And we tell people they're weak.
Yeah.
For being hurt.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That if they back away, they're in sin. The responsibility is being placed on victims instead of those who are there to bear the burdens of those who have been hurt.
Right.
So I don't know. I think Bishop Wooden was out to lunch on his wooden interpretation of what church hurt is.
Yeah.
He preached it. He brung it, but he brung it wrong. So, any final words?
No. I just wanting to let everyone know church hurt is a real thing. Don't let nobody tell you any different. If you're at a church that is speaking like this, where you're not able to tell your truth and have people come around you and love on you and pray with you and work with you in this, then, maybe you might need to rethink, the environment you're in.
That's good, Lisa. Can't say it no better. Won't say it no better. That's it.
Right.
Good job, babe. Thank you so much for joining the Church Dropout podcast. And if you have not already, please like, rate, and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast at. As usual, keep the conversation moving forward in the comments. We love to hear your thoughts in it. And that's it for another episode, man. We out.
All right. Good night.
Good night.